All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Dakota, and this is just kind of my quick overview of what I do as a fitness accountability coach. And I've designed it in such a way that I can give you a pretty good overview without taking up a ton of time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So who the hell am I anyway, right? Some guy from the internet. Um, well, I'm, as I said, my name's Dakota. I'm a pharmacist turned fitness accountability coach. I also have a background as a powerlifter. I competed between 2008 and 2016. Now, after that, I did go through a period where I sort of let myself go and gained a ton of weight, about 50 pounds or so. And actually, I think more than that, maybe more like 60 pounds. But after some time around 2017, I really got sick of that and wanted to make a massive change. And so I did. And so since then, I'm down 70 pounds and have maintained that and have led a much healthier lifestyle. And I did all of that while being in school and having a full-time job and having a ton of other things going on. So I figured if I could do it, anybody else can too. And that's what I wanted to dedicate myself to doing. I wanted to dedicate myself to helping other people make that transition to building up more muscle or shredding down their excess fat, or both. I've done both of those things at different points. And this allowed me to have a more proactive approach with impacting people's health. Whereas in the healthcare industry, which I did for about 6 years, I had a more reactive approach, right? Helping people who were already sick slow down their progress into getting sicker and sicker. So this allowed me to be more proactive and improve people's health, improve people's self-image. And I will actually be able to get into that a little bit more later in this slideshow. Now, the three main pillars of any decent fitness and health and wellness program are these. So I like to think of it as the three-legged stool, right? If you break one, then it's going to fall over and you can't sit on it unless you fix it, right? So that's kind of how nutrition, workouts, and accountability work together, even though they may seem at times very different from each other. Now, some people may say that's a little bit oversimplified because, for example, nutrition is responsible for about 80% of people's progress with most things, whether you're trying to put on muscle mass or shred down your fat or both. Nutrition is going to be responsible for about 80% of your progress. However, especially if you're trying to develop certain muscles, you're not going to be able to accomplish that without your other 20%, the workouts. And then you're not going to be able to accomplish either one of those things without holding yourself accountable and building self-discipline to stay consistent. Now, the way that I like to approach this is that this should not be a constant chore. And this is where people really, in some ways, sabotage themselves, usually unintentionally, I think. But for example, if you start yourself on a really strict diet to lose 20 or 25 pounds in a month, you may be able to do that. But the problem is, if you're not eating in a sustainable, healthy way, then you're going to go back to your old habits after that month is over and gain all the weight back, and maybe even more weight on top of that, right? And same thing with exercise in a lot of ways. Like if you set yourself up to where you're in the gym for 3 hours a day, 6 days a week. Well, I mean, if you work a full-time job, for example, how feasible is it to do that in perpetuity? Probably not very, right? It's more important to create habits that work with what you're able to do, but also with what you already like to do. The truth is, with nutrition, for example, any diet works. Whether, you'll hear people talk about keto, they'll talk about vegan diets, paleo, whatever, anything in between. They all work. It's all about what you want to achieve and also what you already like. Because if we focus on foods that you already like eating, or at least work them in somehow, then you'll have that much easier of a time sticking to your meal plan that you've set out on to achieve your goal, right? If you love dessert food, then completely giving up ice cream may not be practical for you. And you may say, oh, but I could do it for a month. But what about after that month? Are you going to give up ice cream for a month or 2 months and then pig out on ice cream? Well, what do you think the results of that is going to be, right? You're going to undo all the progress you made. So it's more important to take what you know you already like and make that work for you. Workouts, same thing. If you hate running, don't run. If you love running, then maybe that's going to be the best option for you in terms of a cardio workout. And of course, we talk about accountability coaching. That's sort of the purpose of it, is we're going to try to build up new habits to replace your old ones that have been setting you back so far. And the best analogy for this is, or in my mind, is brushing your teeth, right? I'm going to presume that hopefully everybody watching this video brushes their teeth every day. And as an adult, you probably would feel pretty gross if you went 24 plus hours without brushing your teeth. But I can almost guarantee there was a time when you hated brushing your teeth when you were a little kid, right? You probably had parents or guardians that forced you to do it for a while. And eventually you learned to do it on your own, and it just became a normal part of your routine that you wouldn't go without because you know that it's important. And it doesn't feel like a chore anymore. It's just something you got to do. And that's how this can be, essentially, right? Because you're an adult now, you're not a little kid, but you still have a human brain, and external pressure, external accountability is very effective. And that's why peer pressure is so effective. Even for adults, even groups of adults like to get in on the same things within their little friend groups. Peer pressure doesn't really go away. And it can be a great force when it's used for the right reasons. And that is essentially the core tenet of my accountability coaching practice, which is that I want to work with you to figure out a nutrition plan that works for you. It's got stuff you like in it, but it's also going to help you hit your goal. Same with the workout plan. It's got exercises that you would enjoy doing, but we're also going to make sure that it helps you hit your goal. And building up those habits, helping you stay consistent, is going to be the key. The difference between the people who make a lot of progress and the people who don't is consistency. And so that is the number one thing that I'm going to be able to help you with. Now, importantly, before I forget, before your scheduled call, honestly rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 for each of these things. So 1 for workouts might be if you have never worked out before, or you haven't worked out in a really long time, or you just don't really know what you're doing. If you were to go to a gym, you wouldn't even know where to start. That's probably a 1. If you work out sometimes, but not all the time, you don't really know what you're doing in the gym, you just kind of work out to get some work in once in a while, that's probably mid-range, more like a 5. And if you work out all the time, you have a ton of exercise knowledge coming into this, you may in fact be a 10 out of 10. Nutrition is kind of the same thing. If you don't really know much about nutrition, hardly at all, then you may be a 1. I think a lot of people with nutrition are probably pretty mid-range or somewhere around there, where you have an idea of what healthy eating is, but implementing it is hard because for years now, a lot of us have kind of had these diets built around the wrong types of foods that put us on the wrong path. So that's going to be more like 5. 10 out of 10 is if you have a ton of nutrition knowledge, you know all about what foods you should be eating to achieve the goal that you're going for, but also tracking macros, tracking calories. If you feel like you're pretty expert level in that, then you're a 10 out of 10. Accountability is even simpler. So accountability is about discipline, right? And being disciplined means that you do what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, whether you feel like it or not. If you feel that you consistently are on that level, then you're a 10 out of 10. If you have trouble getting anything done, if you don't show up where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, if you have trouble committing to a certain course of action, if you have trouble consistently getting things done that you know need to get done, you're probably a 1. And mid-range is if you're just kind of inconsistent. You stick to things sometimes, but not all the time. And so yeah, honestly, rate yourself, and we will work from there. And if you end up with all ones, that's fine. It's just a good idea to have the level that you're starting from, so that I can meet you there and work forward. I've had clients start that I honestly would probably rate like a 1 or a 2 out of all of these. And if they're willing to put in the work and work with me, let me help them to get to their goal, they do just fine. They often do just as well as the people who are really advanced. So, it's all about mindset. But definitely take note, honestly. You don't have to be super self-deprecating, but do be honest. Now, I want to segue. This is the accountability coach in me coming out, right? So this is the most common excuse that I've heard in my life, I think, which is I've got no time. So here's the thing, some people say I'm busy. I'm really busy. Well, here's the thing. Everybody's busy. Like pretty much everybody is busy, but we do the things that we identify as important. For example, most people listening to this probably have a full-time job. And whether that's more of a 9-to-5 type of gig, or if you've ever experienced like a sales job, for example, you have to go out there and work for those commissions, or you're not going to make money. If you have a 9-to-5, or maybe not even a 9-to-5 job, but if you have a job where you have a scheduled work day, you got to show up or you're not going to get paid, right? So this is how we need to approach this. Because if you consider it important, it will get done. And another good example of this is stuff that you enjoy doing, kind of going back to what I said with in the previous slide. If your favorite TV show is Game of Thrones, for example, even though I know everybody hated the end of Game of Thrones pretty much, whenever you were watching that show, if you were really into it, I probably would not have to push you very hard to watch the next episode. I wouldn't have to work hard to motivate you. You would just intrinsically want to do it. And that's the benefit of focusing on things you already like to do and implementing that in such a way that you can hit your goal. But it also applies here. Considering certain things mandatory, you're not going to miss your favorite show, and you're not going to miss work unless it's unavoidable, like you're really sick or injured or something and you have to call in. That's how we need to approach this. Figure out where it fits in your schedule and make it happen. So I use this example because I've worked with people who work anywhere from 40 hours to 80 or 100, which are usually the medical residents that work those crazy hours, but we still manage to make it happen and get it done. In this example, I illustrate that there's 168 hours in a week, right? And if we subtract a 60-hour work week and also about 42 hours of sleep, so that's about 6 hours per night, and then 20 hours for other obligations, time with family, time with friends, errands and grocery shopping, whatever else you have to do. Let's dedicate 20 hours to that. That leaves us with 46 hours left over in the week. Even in this pretty busy week, somebody who works 60 hours a week, that's a lot, right? Now, I have no interest in taking up 46 hours of anybody's time. However, if we identify that there's about 46 hours in your week left over after everything is said and done, it's going to be really hard for you to convince me that you don't have time to work out, say, 45 minutes to an hour, 3 days a week, or to take a couple hours with me to identify how we can change your grocery shopping habits to get you on track with a better meal plan to hit your nutrition goals. It's going to be difficult to convince me of that you can't do 1 hour on a certain day here if you have 46 hours distributed throughout your week. And acknowledging that there is time, even if you're busy, is an important first step for sure. Now, these are just some examples of progress photos. On the bottom is me. And it's unfortunately, I don't have my entire transformation for you. I didn't document it, so I don't have photos from the beginning, but this is part of it anyway. And then on the top is one of my clients, his name is Jose, and he's done a great job. He started out about 243 and got down to 219 pretty quick. But it's even more impressive than that because he shredded a lot of fat and added a good amount of muscle mass onto his body. And even though we, I guess, had different objectives in the beginning in some ways, we both came to the same realization that it is possible. You know, when I started, I was still in college and I had a full-time job, and I had kind of convinced myself, like, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to seriously fix my diet. And Jose kind of had that same mindset. He works a lot of hours, and he didn't feel like he had time to really exercise or eat better food. But I worked with him to make it happen, and I met him where he was at, and I think we're both happy with the decisions we made and the results that continue to pay dividends down the line. And so this is kind of my point about mindset. Your ability to succeed is whatever you make it out to be. And it kind of reminds me of that quote that's often attributed to Henry Ford, that whether you can or can't do something, you're right. There's a lot of truth to that. I mean, sure, there's certain things that we literally cannot do. But generally speaking, if you really have that mindset that I not just I can, but I will do something, it's very hard to fail. It really is. I mean, if you work with me and come in with that mindset, or work with me to transition to having that mindset, then it's almost impossible to fail. It really is. Because like I illustrated, you have the time. It's just about committing to putting in the effort. I will do whatever I have to do to get you to where you need to be. But you need to take the first step and help me help you, if that makes sense. If you're willing to put in the effort, then I will meet you where you are at, and get you to where we need to go. All right. So that's all for me right now. If you have any questions or comments, definitely let me know on the call and we can talk about it. Also, do not forget the brief little homework where you are going to rate yourself honestly on your skill set for nutrition, workouts, and accountability on a scale of 1 to 10. So do that now, write it down, and have it handy on our call. And that way we can talk about it. We can, identify your current situation, where you need the most help right now, and work forward from there. But yeah, I will see you then.